Good afternoon. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the City Council are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver it to the City Clerk staff prior to the item being heard by the City Council. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, please state your name, city residence for the record. Communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that state law prohibits the City Council from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute time limit. 3-minute limit for comments, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards. Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for communication from the public.
Okay. Moving on to our agenda items. Item number 1 is a report on the City Seal Guidance Request. Sean Hull, Chief Communications Officer, will present this item.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me today. As you said, we're going to present the City of Corona City Seal Guidance and just look for feedback. So I'm Sean Hull, Chief Communication Officer, and I will be giving the report. So the ask is, today we just asked that you would provide guidance on City Seal art direction. We'll check it out and you just give us your feedback. So in May, we presented our draft City Seal and we received feedback from council. And the consensus feedback that we heard was to make the mountains more realistic and then to consider the pathway, the circle, and how to render that differently. And we'll look at what we did now. So here's some possible art directions for the renderings. Make the mountains more realistic. So as you can see there, we took, actually I'm gonna go to the next slide. Here we go. We actually took a photo of the actual Cleveland National Forest, took a cross section of it and then tried to render the mountains so it's a realistic view of what the mountains actually look like. You can see that here. And then we try to count the peaks, so all the peaks kind of can look like a crown. You can see there's 5 different points on there. And then inside the mountains, we made sure that try to incorporate a little bit of the peaks to make sure that they look exactly how the mountains look on the photo. And that's the cross section that we took right there. So before, the original one is on the left. You can see that the mountains are really abstract and kind of we're trying to render it as a crown. But now instead of going in that direction, we wanted to make realistic mountains, and you can see that on the right. And then also you asked if we can consider the pathway or not having the pathway. So you can see those 2 options, option A with the pathway, and then option B is without the pathway. And really, I just want to give you guys a time to just look at these 2 different options with those revisions and kind of take it in for a second. So again, we have the mountains on the left, how they originally looked, mountains on the right, how we're rendering them now with your direction to make them more realistic. And then here we have the seal with the pathway, and then we have it without the pathway. And as before, we have the same color options that we've always had, having the green border for the seal, having a yellow-orange border, and then having a black and white version. And then there's with the pathway, without the pathway. So that's, wanted to just keep it simple, not do too much discussion or explanation, just let you guys look at those different revisions and compare and contrast how it was and how it is now, and just provide direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, yes, I have one speaker card for this item.
Paxton, District 1. My first, looking at the different work, the renderings, the first thing I had thought was, wow, this is a whole lot of work done. So I do appreciate that. And the second thing that came to mind is this is very reminiscent of something I would see at the Sawdust Festival in Laguna Beach, kind of artsy-fartsy. I'm going to take it back and want to know, what is the purpose of this seal? It's for the people that live here today, the people we want to bring in, and to me, it's the people moving forward. So I had to go back to the original of top 3 things about Corona, okay? So again, my little factoids. What Corona is known for. The first thing is Corona means crown. In my opinion, we know what it means, but we want to represent that to the rest of the world. I don't see the crown. Somehow the mountains, I know we're supposed to be representative of the crown. That to me is not one of the high drivers. It's the crown. Corona is the crown. The second thing, we're known as the If you Google lemon capital of the world, we're Corona. Got that right. It's lemon. Got it. I've got my lemon shirt on today. And the third thing to me is Grand Avenue. We have this amazing circle. So we're the Circle City, and that's Grand Avenue. Those are if you're asking me, the 3 things I think that represent Corona. Last but not least is the color. I'm really trying to understand why it's more of a mustardy yellow, like a golden yellow. To me, Corona, lemon, should be lemon yellow. And I do understand that sometimes lemon is very difficult to show on a diagram, but you outline it in another darker color like black or dark brown or dark green. So just my opinion is this is the way we want to represent ourselves to us, to other people moving forward, and future generations. Thank you for letting me voice my opinion.
Thank you.
Maddie, are you A or B?
I'm not really either. I'm still not understanding how it got changed. I mean, neither and both. Bits and pieces of that. So I don't know how to answer that question.
Thank you. I guess I'll start with my colleagues if there's no other comments. Councilmember Steiner?
Sure, thank you. So after the last meeting, I had reached out to our team and had brought up, why are we looking at mountains to the north of us that are, 20 plus miles away when we have our own beautiful mountains behind us that we actually use every day. And we have a lot of trails that are included in those mountains. Many you can see from far away. And so I just suggested, let's take a different view of our city from looking south instead of north. I thought the mountains, I think they're better. In my head, I kind of felt like you might see what most people see when you look at the mountains to the south, and you see the Main Street meadow, you see the Skyline meadow. Those are very evident. You can see them from really far away, and they're really beautiful and they're intriguing. So I kind of hoped we might see that. Now, I also understand that that type of detail may not be able to be shown in a rendering, but it doesn't have to be much, just a little patch of meadow that you might be able to see in a couple spots on that rendering on the city seal. I do like it better without the path. I do like the yellow color scheme that was on one of the other slides. next one there, I like that yellow better. I understand what Maddie's saying with the color. I think that we need to make it match as close to a lemon as possible. I'm not the best, I got a little bit of Wes's color blindness when I look at things. And those lemons on that looks like lemon yellow to me. Now, the outer band is a little darker. Maybe that's what Ms. Paxton's referring to. But those lemons look like they're the normal color to me. I also really agree with Ms. Paxton on the crown. That's what we are known for, and I don't know, when I look at those mountains, I don't see a crown, really. I guess you could stretch that imagination, but it would be nice to see a crown in there somewhere. I only got one comment from the public. Ms. Crystal Barney had emailed all of us and offered her suggestion. She generally liked it. I appreciated her comments. So for now, that's just my comments. Yeah.
Councilmember?
Do you want our choice as well as our comments? Mayor?
I think we'll go through at the end. I'd like to hear everybody's comments.
Okay. Thank you to Ms. Paxton for sharing her thoughts, and also to the team for the work done. I really do appreciate the improvements on the mountains. They look more realistic to our mountains. They're still a little peakier than our mountains, but but at least they look like they belong. You know, when we were discussing this last time, I know you had 5 folks on the dais and had 25 opinions from 5 folks on the dais. So it was really difficult to sift through it, but I'm glad that we're focusing on these 2 things. So I liked the pathway when we spoke about the possibility of bringing out the letter C, because there was a connection there between the logo and the seal. But since we were not able to bring out the letter C in the seal, it's no longer obvious that there's a connection. So for that reason, I think the pathway loses value. I don't think it's intuitive to the average person what that pathway means or is. Therefore, I like it better without the pathway. As for the colors, those are all the colors that we'll be using the logo in, right? It's not like we're choosing a color. We will use it both in that green and that yellow and that black and white, depending on its setting, right? Okay. The colors, I think, are appropriate. I think they're also a little more mature and professional than like Crayola colors. So I appreciate them. And you know, and I also agree that we're known for the mountains, we're known for the Grand Boulevard and the crown, but the crown was never literal. The crown was always interpretive. It was an idea of what the Grand Boulevard is. It's a circle, it's a call to royalty. And so I don't believe that we need to be literal in the seal to call out the crown either. So I believe folks will look at this, will recognize the circle to be Grand Boulevard. It is our crown of our destination, and we don't necessarily need to put in an actual tiara of sorts. So, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I got quite a bit to say. I really like the logo a lot, or I'm sorry, the seal a lot. Right? Actually, I like both. But I asked Sylvia to add some pictures. I was wondering if she could bring them up. So this picture right here was painted in the 1930s or 40s, we don't know which, but it was by the Corona High School teacher named Mr. Howard Mullins. And he captures Corona. That is his painting of Corona. And you see the muted mountains in the background and the lemons and so forth. And then if you go to the next picture, he painted this picture of the city. So he probably sat up on a hill somewhere and painted the city. And this is almost 100 years ago. This is 90 some odd years ago that he did these paintings. So to see these paintings back then and to see the seal now, the proposed seal now, it tells me that they've aced the seal going forward. And then you can turn those off. And to give some history, when Corona was first started, it was South Riverside. And everybody hated the name and didn't want to call it South Riverside. They didn't want to be associated with Riverside. And they almost refused to call it South Riverside. The nickname of the town back then was Queen Colony. And the Queen came from the Circle Grand Boulevard. The Colony came from Anaheim Colony, because that's what Anaheim was called. So it was Queen Colony. 1896, 1895, in there, the citizens said, we're done with South Riverside. And it was Baron Hickey, who was the son-in-law to Mr. Flagler, the famous Flagler. He wrote a letter to city founder Robert Taylor and said, Corona, you have a circular boulevard. That is your crown, your Queen Colony. Your people have always done that. The crown's right there in the seal. It's Grand Boulevard. You should name it Corona because Corona is Spanish for crown. This was so important to Robert Taylor that this history be remembered, that when a picture of him that he sent to the library to be hung, on the back of it was the letter from Mr. Flagler to Robert Taylor saying where the name Corona came from. He preserved that history, our city founder Taylor did. And so to see this logo, to see the lemons, because we were the lemon capital of the world, to see the crown, to see the mountains, I don't think anyone could have done a much better seal. And I'm really proud of it. I'll tell anyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Hull, I have a question for you. I know that sometimes color can get wonky on like a computer monitor versus, on an actual sample. Just for our own edification, the yellow, how does that actually appear in the wild, if you will? Like, I'm sure it's a Pantone color that you picked.
I guess it'd be hard for me to explain how it looks.
But I guess in reference to this, is it brighter? Is it more muted?
I'm seeing it two different ways, actually. Yeah, I'm looking at my monitor. It feels a little more muted on these screens. It's a bit brighter in real life when it's rendered, I would say.
And did you guys pick it off of like a swatch or like a Pantone swatch or something, or did
Yeah.
the designers? Okay.
Yes.
So I also did not like the pathway. I think in relation to the logo, it would have made more sense if you could see the C, but then it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense in here. So I like it without the pathway. There we go. And I also agree that the yellow seems a little off, but I also recognize that it could be because of the computer monitor and not so much as the actual color that would show on, on something else. And I've seen the palette on some of the shirts that we've done, and it does appear more brighter, in my opinion. So I like it without the path. I think that's a better choice. And so I think you've got all of our comments. I know Councilmember Speak, who is at a conference right now, also gave you some of his comments in writing. So we'll just go around really quickly, and now I'd ask for your opinion as far as which one you like. Councilmember Steiner?
All right, well, on the option A color schemes, it's currently up on the screen. That is there it is.
Are we voting on color scheme?
What's that?
Are we voting on color scheme?
So I'll make a correction on this. This is just showing option A and option B with the color schemes. So the color schemes aren't an option we're choosing. It's option A or B. We just wanted to show you all the color schemes.
So can we go to the slide that has option A and option B? There we go.
Okay, so what you're saying is we will, like Jackie had said earlier, we're going to have multiple colors on, okay.
It's a palette that we're using, I think is probably a better term. We're just kind of, do we like the mountains? Do we like the pathway?
Okay, so then I like B without the pathway. And I still wish there could be a crown of some sort in there. I appreciate Tom's explanation because, like I said, I'm not much of a history nerd, but that was some pretty good history. And it sounded like I was the only one that wanted the crown anyways, so sounds like I'll go down in defeat there, but B.
Councilmember Casillas?
B.
Vice Mayor?
B.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I also like B, but wasn't there an iteration that had more lemon blossoms earlier? This is probably around the first meeting. I wonder if that would be a way to incorporate a crown in the lemon blossoms. But
Are you referring to the white parts,
Yeah.
those blossoms? I think maybe in a very early, there was like 2 more in there, a very early rendition.
all right, I like option B, and I would like to see when it comes back for final adoption if you could bring samples of the actual yellow.
Like in print?
Yeah.
In print, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, or like on a shirt or something like that, because the yellow is going to be different when it's printed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, we're not going to make it DeWalt yellow, Vice Mayor. Okay. Item number 2 is a report on Garrettson Elementary traffic update. Rosa Urano, city traffic engineer, and Aaron Cox, senior traffic engineer traffic. Are we making things up now? We'll present this item.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Rosie Ureño, and with me is Aaron Cox, and today we're going to present to you the Garrettson Elementary traffic update. So today we're requesting feedback on staff's joint effort with Corona-Norco Unified School District and its recommended traffic mitigation strategy with Garrettson Elementary traffic issues. Aaron will start us off with some background and history of the traffic concerning Garrettson Elementary.
Thank you, Rosie. So what are the concerns surrounding Garrettson Elementary? We've received complaints that we went out and observed, and in the front of the school, we have traffic gridlock. Because of this gridlock, we have some poor driver behavior that we've observed, which includes wrong-way driving, ignoring the signs and markings, blocking crosswalks. Also because of this, we're seeing jaywalking of students, and we're seeing some parent behavior of not wanting to wait in line and dropping your children off on the curb of Garrettson Avenue instead of waiting to get on campus. And a factor of this is that this is a residential street. It's a narrow street. It's not built to a collector standard. Oh, too many clicks. At the rear of the school, we're having some similar concerns, and I'd say the rear of the school is where most of our traffic complaints are coming from. So there is gridlock during pickup. Residents can't get out of their driveways. We're seeing more poor behavior back here of trespassing, people parking in residents' driveways, blocking and double parking, blocking the alley, which is a fire lane, loitering, littering, and again, we're seeing a lot of jaywalking in the back of the school. I'm going to give you a timeline of events of how we got to this presentation. So in September of 2021 was the initial complaint that we received. Shortly after that, we had a meeting with the school, our police department, and the district. Out of that meeting came the need to evaluate a traffic study for a crossing guard at one of the intersections near the school. Following that, traffic engineering, we put our heads together and came up with an interim striping plan that we thought we could create some more efficient flow to the school. We presented that to the school, the district, and the school administration. In addition, out of some of these meetings, we found that there were some signs and striping and curb paint requests that we could enhance. So we completed several of those work orders. In November of 2021, we received feedback from the school administration on our interim striping plan. Again, we met with the district, the school, and our police department to talk about the back lot of Garrettson Elementary. And once again, we presented our interim striping plan to the Garrettson Elementary Safety Committee. Coming out of that meeting, they suggested we present our striping plan to a school and parent group. I believe it was called it was PTA, right? Yeah, it was their PTA group. And in January of 2022, after school got back from winter break, we actually staffed the crossing guard at Garrettson and Rancho. And due to the feedback we received on our interim striping plan, we discussed the need for a third-party, large-scale traffic study to evaluate the traffic issues we're seeing. And later in March, traffic engineering, we prepared the scope for this joint traffic study for the district. The district solicited proposals for these traffic studies, and in May of 2022, the district selected Kimley Horn and Associates to perform this traffic study. And with that, I'm going to talk about the interim striping concept that we had presented to the school. And sorry for the size of this drawing, it's a little small, but what we were trying to do here was change the circulation via striping, curb paint, signage to queue onto the southern portion of Garrettson where it's wider. It's 46 feet wide versus 40 feet wide. And the school cited unfavorable comments about this, how most of the students attending the school are actually from north of the school, and this would make them have to come in from the southern side of the school. Again, this was our way to try to fit it within the existing right-of-way and working with what we got. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rosie to talk about the traffic study.
Thank you, Aaron. All right. So like Aaron said, after meeting several times to discuss the issues surrounding the school, the district and Public Works decided just to pursue a joint study to evaluate the traffic circulation. The scope of the study included drop-off pickup locations, identification of these locations throughout the school, where parents and staff were indicated to park, look at the bell schedules and some history of the parking lot improvements, as well as confirm some of these unsafe pedestrian activities that we had heard of. We had seen some of it ourselves, but we wanted it to be documented as well. This included any hot spots of the traffic congestion, queuing, all the unsafe traffic maneuvers we also saw. The traffic study also provided recommendations for operational improvements that included some staggered bell schedules or additional staffing, as well as maybe relocating the parking and closure of the rear lot to the parents. The study consultant also developed some conceptual plans for both the on-site and the off-site of the school, and which I will share with you guys next. So for the front of the school along Garrettson Avenue, we found that the front parking lot's design was suboptimal. The narrow street fronting the schools limited the queuing capacity. The multiple driveways created additional conflicting movements. And all the observed behavior of the children jaywalking and parents dropping them off along the curbside were also noted. So to fix all of these things, we had a couple of improvements along the school side. This included restriping the parking lot, consolidating the two driveways down to one to reduce the conflict points, as well as installing pedestrian sidewalk and railing, same thing to prevent the jaywalking and the curbside drop-off. The school improvement would also include widening the frontage along Garrettson Avenue. For the city improvements, this would include widening the Garrettson from Kendall to Rancho Road, paving and restriping to accommodate the bidirectional traffic flow. And I'd like to note that this is also similar improvements that we did on Oak Avenue to provide the same kind of relief to Ben Franklin Elementary. So the rear of the school, similar conditions were observed, suboptimal parking lot design. In this case, parents were dropping off and picking up through a residential neighborhood. These narrow residential streets limited the queuing, creating a lot of spillback and actually gridlock in this neighborhood. Children were noticed that they walked off campus instead of waiting for their parents in the identified pickup locations, and my screen went blue. Okay. Sorry, got to pivot now. And all the conflicting vehicle movements along with the children, walking off campus kind of created just unsafe situations. So the proposed improvements to the back lot were more for the school. Some of these were in operation improvements, such as creating dual drop-off and pickup zones in the interior of the parking lot, adding additional staff, and also maybe prohibiting or permit required for walking off campus. Ultimately, improving the front of the school on Garrettson would allow us to work with the school and close the back parking lot to parents and hopefully just rearrange it for only staff parking to be allowed back here. So what would our next steps be? In the near term, we would like to work with CNUSD to reconfigure the rear lot. It can be implemented within months. These are some of the pros. It improves the neighborhood traffic issues, and the district would be responsible for funding of this project. The cons to this would be that it wouldn't be under our control. That would create a learning curve for parents to the new circulation, and parent access may continue through the neighborhood if the school doesn't do it, implement it correctly. In the long term, we would like to see a capital improvement project to widen Garrettson Avenue. The pros to this would to reduce the conflict points and create a safer pedestrian access. It would also create optimal circulation in front of the school, providing CNUSD an option to actually close the back lot to the parents. And in this case, we would not have any acquisition impacts because the right-of-way is, we have all that. The cons to this would be the estimate project would be about $2 million, which would come from city funds and it is not currently budgeted. And we would also need to work with Corona Norco School District to make optimal results and lessen the impact to the school. So once again, our ask is the council provide feedback and direction on our joint traffic mitigation study with Corona Norco Unified School District. And now is the time for questions. Aaron and I are happy to answer anything.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for this item.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Steiner.
Rosie, you mentioned Ben Franklin, and when we did the Oak Street widening, that was a savior. You know, that solved 90% of the drama going on in front of the school. You know, we still have the parents who like to speed down residential streets and do what they do, but the widening was great. So, but my question is, and I just needed a little more clarification. To do a capital improvement and widen Garrettson, do we actually have the realistic room to widen it? We did on Oak.
Yes, we confirmed and we do have the right-of-way. It would just require some relocation of some utilities, utilities there, catch basins, streetlights, and such, but we do have the right-of-way.
Okay. I see my buddy, Mr. Ellis, from the school district out there, and I know that that he has been very involved working with Savat and trying to solve problems around the schools. You know, I don't want you to speak out of turn, Mr. Ellis, but is the school district interested in partnering and try to solve this?
If you could come over to the lectern right there.
Good afternoon, Council. To answer your question, Mr. Steiner, absolutely. You know, it would improve student safety for all of our students, and it would improve conditions and the congestion, or not just in front of the school, but also in the rear of the school as well. And I just want to compliment the traffic engineering department for their work they have done. They're outstanding.
Okay, thank you so much. It sounds like there's a pretty good plan moving forward and working together to try to finally get this issue under control a little bit. So thank you, everybody.
Councilmember Casillas.
Yes, thank you. And I'm so glad that we continue to have a good partnership with Corona Norco Unified School District, that we're all at the table talking, trying to see how we can improve this. And it really is about student safety. So I have the PowerPoint up here. I think the thing I appreciate the most is that proposed pedestrian railing to really deter the jaywalking across the street. So, I mean, you all are the experts. You've clearly done this, and we've hired more experts. We've done the analysis. I too was concerned about whether or not we actually can widen Garrettson. If you say it's possible, then I think that's great. And I would love for us to explore that. $2 million doesn't seem like a whole lot when it comes to widening a road. So I'm curious to know and learn more about whether or not that's like an accurate number and how we can work towards getting that budgeted. And how we can work towards providing relief as quickly as possible. Because even though the first complaint was in 2021 and we're now in 2023, it took a lot to get to the first complaint. So this has been a thing that folks have been feeling for a very long time. So I'd be interested in us finding a solution, well, getting to the longer term solution as quickly as possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I do have a question. Does it cost more if the construction work to widen it is done during the summer when school's out?
We don't think that there would be a significant cost. It is low, the lowest bidder. We're going to try to time it to do it in the summer. But when we talk to the school district, they actually have programs in the summer. So having it just open to summer construction, we may have more flexibility than that.
Okay. And then the other question is it's my understanding that Garrettson has been ramping up over the years. So they've increased their population on purpose. They've put the GATE program over there and the dual immersion program over there. Has the district considered moving those programs to other schools, or is there anything the district can do to minimize its student population count? Careful, Reggie's watching.
I saw that. A great question is actually this year from last year, our population there at the school has decreased by about 100 students, and it will continue to do so next year. But we are looking at implementing additional programs throughout the district.
But are there steps that can be done to decrease Garrettson and maybe put the burden on other schools?
That's already taking place. We've reduced the student population this year by 100 students at that school.
Okay, okay, cool, thank you.
He did great. That's the last time I will second guess if he has the answer.
So a couple things. I fielded a couple phone calls from residents, particularly in the back part, where it's greatly impacted their quality of life. And one of the things that they shared with me is that back parking lot was built, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, but only recently did they start releasing students through that back lot. And once they started releasing students through that back parking lot is when it became a nightmare in that neighborhood. And so one of the things that I wanted to note is we have a co-meeting with CNUSD School Board coming up on October 11th. And this is something that we could certainly bring up to them. But in the spirit of doing something now, my request would be to stop releasing students in that back parking lot. And as a dad of with a elementary age child that deals with the drop off and pickup on a daily basis, and I even volunteer to help with traffic, I can tell you the biggest problem is parents. Parents aren't real great about being considerate to not only other parents but the neighborhood as well when they're dropping off and picking up their kids. That's probably 98% of the problem. Little things. Put your kid on the passenger side, not on the driver's side when you go to the pickup and the drop-off line, right? I mean, if you're a parent and you utilize those things, you see that and it drives you bonkers. So that would be one of the things that I would suggest is immediate can help out is if they're releasing students into the front of the school only, not the rear of the school. And I will tell our friends from the school board that are here, or from the school district that are here, you know, the stories of folks in these back neighborhood is pretty immense and pretty powerful. People can't get out of their driveway, elderly folks not being able to get in and out of their home, concerned about having, you know, a medical issue, and I guess the jam is for about 45 minutes before, you know, from start to finish once the school's let out, and then moves on from there. So I appreciate all of the work that you guys did. I know Mr. Cox and I had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago, and I look forward to the school district helping us come up with a solution together, something that we could do immediately and something that we can do long-term. So we will take that into consideration. Moving on, I guess that's it for our study session. So we're going to adjourn to the next meeting of the City Council, which is tonight at 6:30. Thank you very much.